Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday, February 5th, 2022. This is Aero Stealth here. I wanted to do a quick summary of a trip we took to Phoenix in our EV. It's our first trip, and it's a reason it's notable. Just to recap here, we have a 2019 Chevrolet Bolt, which isn't really gray, it's moon dust gray. But we have a 60 kilowatt hour battery in the car, and we're due for an upgrade supposedly because of the battery recall. And we're only supposed to drive the vehicle down to 30% or 70 miles. And you're only supposed to really charge to 90%. But I usually charge to 95% at home just to eke an extra 5% out. And I sometimes drive down as low as 60 or even 50 miles if I have to. So it was a little challenging to take a trip from Radium Springs, New Mexico to Phoenix, Arizona, which is approximately 400 miles. And not really go beneath 30%. Fact is, it's really not reasonable to attempt that. However, a better route planner would plan out all these itineraries, sometimes it would have me down as 10% or so. And we had tested out the Electrify America charger at Deming. We had to take the car in and get it a software upgrade to get the DC fast charging to work with the car. So we got all that done, and then we planned this trip to Phoenix. And so after charging to 95%, we left the house on Tuesday morning, February 1st. And our first, a better route planner, our first stop was supposed to be Lordsburg. But what I did was we stopped at Deming, which is about halfway, to run into the store for a few items, and I plugged in quickly and picked up an extra 8 kilowatt hours. Now the reason I did that was because I wanted to pad the bottom end. So if I just followed the better route planner from then on out and did what they said, I would have an extra 8 or 10 kilowatt hours in the car at the bottom end. And this seemed to work out reasonably well. It may have cost me a little time. I haven't been able to go over the numbers closely enough to figure out if it cost me more time. However, so we drove on to Lordsburg, and then we did a full charge there to, let's say the better route planner said charge to 60%. Well, instead of charging to 60%, I would charge to 70%. I'd add that extra 10% at the top that I had acquired at Deming. And so we ate lunch there. It was a little early, but we ate lunch at the Chevron. And by the time we was done with lunch, we were pretty much ready to go. So about a 30-minute charge. And then we drove on to Benson, Arizona, where we charged up, and we went into the Walmart. And both of these charging experiences went really well. Our next stop was Marana, which is a little place. I guess it's an incorporation on the north side of Tucson, but we were at some kind of mall there, and we charged up there and drove on into Phoenix from there. Now we didn't get to Phoenix. We left at 8 in the morning. We didn't get to Phoenix till like 6, and that's approximately, as I said, 400 miles. So I have a paper on all this. My subtotal was 91 kilowatt hours, basically, and $32. And we had enough charge left in the car not to worry about it that evening. We checked into our motel, went out and found a place to eat, and decided to wait till the next morning to charge up to have enough charge to do our running around in Phoenix. And that's what we did. And this is one of our first unfortunate experiences we ran into on the trip, was that we ended up at an EV Go charger, which I didn't know from looking at the maps. And there may have been Electrify Americas around the other side of the mall. I don't know. I didn't explore. I thought, well, I'll try it out. Well, I had to call them, and it turned out that they were charging by the minute. And it would have cost us $19 for a charge there. So I truncated it a bit, got it down to $11, because all I needed was running around miles. And so we did that. And then the whole purpose of our vacation was to hook up with my sister and her husband, who were vacationing in Phoenix, and my other sister and her husband, who live there in Sun City. And so that's what we did. We spent that day kind of having a miniature family reunion. And then the next morning we left. It would be Wednesday morning, February 3rd. And just south of Phoenix, I didn't want to get involved in looking for charge points in Phoenix proper, because sometimes you can get turned around there or on the wrong streets or something. Then you have to go to another one. So I went just south on our way out, and we picked up a mall there. I think it was a gambling casino, actually, next to the mall. But we charged up there, and then we started driving south. And I, on the spur of the moment, went ahead, because I knew where the charger was. I decided to stop at Marana again, because we wanted to eat. And so we did that, and we charged the car while we went in the mall and at the food court there and ate. When we came back out, we just unplugged and left. And I haven't got all the numbers written down for these things, but I think at that EV Go charger I picked up close to 20 kilowatt hours. And the next morning at that gambling casino area, picked up another 20 kilowatt hours. And then while we were eating lunch, we picked up 18 kilowatt hours. And then we drove on to Benson, Arizona, and picked up almost 17 kilowatt hours. And then our last charge on the road was at Lordsburg, and we needed to pick up quite a bit of charge because we wanted to try to make it all the way home without stopping again. And the reason for that is, I think you're probably familiar, in this time period there was a blizzard that struck the middle portion of the United States. It ran all the way from southern New Mexico up to New England. And we were just starting to drive into that at Lordsburg. Wind had picked up and the temperature was dropping. So we went ahead and tried to pick up all the charge we could, and we ended up getting 34.3 kilowatt hours. And then we left. And by the time we got home, temperatures were dropping to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And we had a quartering wind out of the front. So this wasn't good for our MPGs. And but we made it home, and the total for the whole trip was 829 miles. And when we charged it home, I charged back to 95%, which is what the charge I left with. And that's the only way you can figure your MPGs. If I stopped anywhere in the middle of the trip to figure my MPGs, it would always give me a high reading back. It's like filling your gas tank when you're figuring out your gas mileage. You got to fill the tank completely. back to the original state. And so we had a total of just short of 227 kilowatt hours, which cost us $62 for 829 miles. And once we filled her back up, our average MPGs was 123.1 MPGs, or 6.7 gallons equivalent in gasoline. So we were really kind of jazzed about this. This was our first trip in our EV, and if we get the battery swap in the car, we should be able to go longer, charge higher, and go longer in between stops. It'll add an extra 30 miles to the car in range, so that should be helpful. The other thing I figured out was that a better route planner uses a metric for our car in particular of 268 watt hours per mile, which translates to roughly 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. So I tried to, when I was on the road, to keep that, that's a readout on a dash, miles per kilowatt hour. I tried to keep that metric at 3.7 or above. Now there would be occasions I'd be climbing grades and so forth, but I knew I could get that energy back on going down the backside of a climb or whatever. So I didn't concern myself about it too much, but I was paying attention to it, and this is a really good idea to make your what happens to you match. Try to make it dovetail with what a better route planner is doing, and that way there's no unpleasant surprises. So there you have it. It's our first trip in our Chevrolet Bolt, and it's also notable because it is under a battery recall, and we did get down to as low as 20% state of charge on a couple occasions, but we didn't try to flaunt it. We tried to keep the bottom end of the state of charge on the car as high as we reasonably could. We weren't going to waste time at chargers charging above 80% unnecessarily, and I think a couple times we did charge to like 85% or so forth, but we didn't do that routinely. So I'm going to let you go there. I had a lot of people complaining to me on the Chevrolet Bolt site that they live in really cold climates, and oh, this wouldn't work there. They barely could make 80 miles and so forth. And you know, I just told them this wasn't an Iditarod test for my car. This was a test for us, and we live in the desert Southwest, so it just happens to be the way it is. But I said, if you don't like it, go ahead and get a gas car, but only put 2 gallons of gas in it every time you go to the gas station, and report back to us on just how that works out. Because essentially, that is all the electricity I can stuff in this car back there is equivalent to approximately 2 gallons of gasoline. And to be able to accomplish a trip, you know, of 400 plus miles and 400 plus miles back, and do that on only 6.7 gallons of energy equivalent, I think it's fantastic, and we love it. That's why we bought the car, and we want to be able to travel in it, and now we know we can. So I'm going to let you go. I don't want to run this thing too long. I'm over 14 minutes now. So happy electron guzzling, everybody. And by the way, I did run into a gawker in the way in Tucson, and this lady was hanging out of their Silverado, and she was reading my decal. I hope it made an impression on her. My ancestors used to have tailpipes. Bye-bye, everybody. Aero Stealth signing out.